Hey everybody, I'm Tim Mooney. I am back with Shakespeare's Dirty Jokes. This time around, Act 2, Scene 5 of Twelfth Night. I just came off of the summer of performing my latest one-man show, Breakneck Twelfth Night, to a bunch of festivals, playing to some boisterous audiences along the way, and found myself amazed at the number of dirty jokes Shakespeare snuck into just about every scene. And so I came up with the idea for this series, because there's nothing that might get you more interested in Elizabethan drama than the notion that their minds were just as twisted as ours. Here in Act 2, Scene 5, we see the first hilarious result from the earlier conflict where Malvolio, the stuffy, priggish Puritan, spoiled Sir Toby's late-night party with Festy, Sir Andrew, and Maria. While previously Maria relayed her mistress's concerns about Toby's late-night carousing, she simply can't bear it when Malvolio, a fellow servant, sticks his nose into their fun and comes up with the idea to gull Malvolio into looking like an ass by writing a love letter, seemingly in Olivia's handwriting. Here, Maria has written that letter and shoos Toby and Sir Andrew off to hide behind a tree to observe Malvolio stumbling across the note. Maria drops what certainly sounds like some dirty innuendo, calling Malvolio the trout that must be caught with tickling. Once again, there is an actual, non-dirty practice whereby fishermen would capture trout by tickling their bellies. But when you apply that concept to Malvolio, who is going to be caught amid the hopes of a suggested romantic encounter, the trout that gets tickled in this instance may actually have nothing to do with fishing. Malvolio enters, already enraptured with the notion that his lady the Countess, who is by definition way above his league, might somehow fall in love with him. Indeed, Maria, who has set up this interlude, once told him that Olivia held some affection for him, and that the lady herself alluded to liking his complexion. As hopeless as his cause might seem, he does have some precedent, citing the lady of the Strachey, who once married the yeoman of the wardrobe. Apparently, this was one of those one-in-a-million relationships that gives ever-hapless minions hope that they themselves might somehow marry their way into a life of luxury. But Malvolio's imagination doesn't stop there. He fantasizes some future time where he and Olivia have actually married, and after some 3 months, their intimacy has advanced to some canoodling in the daybed, from which he leaves her to exercise the power that comes with marrying up. He imagines himself giving orders to the other servants, and even sees himself bossing Sir Toby around, telling him to amend your drunkenness. Malvolio stumbles upon the letter that Maria planted, and he peruses the letter's exterior, immediately recognizing his lady's handwriting, which Maria already told us she could forge, and fawns over her very C's, her U's, her T's, and her P's. From our modern perspective, this may be the dirtiest joke of Shakespeare's career. The word that Malvolio has inadvertently spelled out would probably get this video banned from YouTube. Although in Shakespeare's day, it didn't carry quite such a startling stigma. Malvolio's recognition of Olivia's C's, U's, and T's, and eventually P's, may already seem confusing, given that the words in the salutation to the unknown beloved, this and my good wishes, contain neither any C's or any P's. But assuming that the letter P meant to them what it means to us now, and we have every reason to believe that it does, such a P might actually be produced by her C's, her U's, and her T's. Again, this was not quite such a conversation stopper in Shakespeare's time as it is in ours, but it's pretty hard to deny the implications. Malvolio proceeds to read the letter, which is written to an unknown beloved, for whom all evidence points to Malvolio, as the letter describes her secret love as a servant, and more precisely, a steward. The letter continues to suggest that Olivia's particular attraction, or dare I say her kink, has to do with a pair of cross-gartered yellow stockings that she once complimented Malvolio on. This will all pay off wildly when we get to Act 3, but all the evidence that we have in this scene points to the notion that Olivia was horrified at Malvolio's singular attempt to step up his wardrobe by adding hideous, cross-gartered yellow stockings. Finally, the supposed Olivia signs off with what sure sounds like erotic suggestiveness, acknowledging herself as she that would alter services with thee. On one level, yes, she may simply be suggesting that as the mistress to her servant Malvolio, she might open up the relationship for him to boss her around a little bit, but that phrase, to alter services with thee, might imply something far more intimate. For lovers, to alter services might suggest one partner performing a service for the other's pleasure, with the other then returning the favor. I leave those services to your imagination. Is it getting hot in here? The only thing left to add is that Sir Toby, who has witnessed Malvolio's reading of Maria's somewhat erotic letter, finds himself thoroughly enraptured by Maria's great tantalizing suggestiveness. And when she returns, his thoughts for her seem to have developed a kinky texture of their own, presenting his own neck for Maria to step upon and offering to be her bond slave. Yes, the allure of bondage and role play seem to date back to the Elizabethan era and probably far beyond. And so, with all of that in mind, here's Act 2, Scene 5 of Breakneck Twelfth Night. Scene 5. Sir Toby and Sir Andrew meet Maria in the garden. How now, my metal of India? Get ye into the box tree. Malvolio is coming down this walk. Observe him. Lie thou there, for here comes the trout that must be caught with tickling. As Maria exits, the observers hide behind the tree from which they can barely stifle their laughter. In order to do justice to Malvolio's speech, I will leave it to you to improvise the roles of the giddy secret observers. 'Tis but fortune. All is fortune. Maria once told me she did affect me, and I have heard herself come thus near, that should she fancy it should be one of my complexion. Besides, she uses me with a more exalted respect than anyone else that follows her. What should I think on't? To be Count Malvolio. There's example for it. The lady of the strait, she married the yeoman of the wardrobe. Having been 3 months married to her, sitting in my state, calling my officers about me in my branched velvet gown, having come from a daybed where I have left Olivia sleeping. And then to have the humor of state, and after a demure travel of regard, saying, I know my place, as I would they should do theirs, too, for my kinsman Toby. Toby approaches, courtesies there to me. I extend my hand to him thus, quenching my familiar smile with an austere regard of control, saying, Cousin Toby, my fortunes having cast me on your niece, give me this prerogative of speech. You must amend your drunkenness. What employment have we here? By my life, 'tis my lady's hand. These be her very C's, her U's, and her T's, and thus makes she her great P's. To the unknown beloved, this and my good wishes, her very phrases. By your leave, wax, soft, and the impressure her Lucrece with which she uses to seal. Jove knows I love, but who? Lips do not move. No man must know. No man must know. What follows? The numbers alter. No man must know. If this should be the Malvolio, I may command where I adore, but silence like a Lucrece knife with bloodless stroke my heart doth gore. M-O-A-I doth sway my life. M-O-A-I. Nay, but first, let me see. I may command where I adore. Why? She may command me, I serve her. And that end, what does that alphabetical position portend? If I could make that resemble something in me. M. Malvolio, M, when that begins my name. But then there is no consonancy in the sequel. That suffers under probation. A should follow, but O does, and then I comes behind. And yet, to crush this a little, it would bow to me, for every one of these letters are in my name. Soft, here follows prose. If this fall into thy hand, revolve. In my stars I am above thee, but be not afraid of greatness. Some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. Thy fates open their hands, let thy tongue and spirit embrace them. Be opposite with a kinsman, surly with servants, let thy tongue tang arguments of state. She thus advises thee that sighs for thee. Remember who commended thy yellow stockings and wished to see thee ever cross-gartered. I say remember, go to, thou art maid, if thou desirest to be so. If not, let me see thee a steward still, the fellow of servants, and not worthy to touch fortune's fingers. Farewell. She that would alter services with thee, the fortunate unhappy. Daylight and champagne discovers not more. This is open. I will be proud. I will read politic authors. I will baffle Sir Toby. I will be Pontifice the very man. I do not now fool myself to let imagination jade me, for every reason excites to this, that my lady loves me. She did commend my yellow stockings of late. She did praise my leg being cross-gartered, and with this she manifests herself to my love, and with a kind of injunction drives me to these habits of her liking. I thank my stars I am happy. I will be strange, stout, in yellow stockings, and cross-gartered. Jove and my stars be praised. Here is yet a postscript. Thou canst not choose but know who I am. If thou entertainst my love, let it appear in thy smiling. Thy smiles become thee well. Therefore, in my presence, still smile, dear my sweet, I prithee. Jove, I thank thee. I will smile. I will do everything thou wilt have me. As Malvolio exits, the observers stumble from behind the tree, bursting with laughter. I could marry this wench for this device, and as no other dowry but such another jest. Re-enter Maria. Wilt thou put thy foot on my neck? Shall I be thy bond-slave? Mark his next approach. He will come to my lady in yellow stockings, a color she abhors, and cross-gartered, a fashion she detests, and he will smile at her, which will be so repulsive to her melancholy, it shall turn him into a notable contempt. If you would see it, follow me to the gates of Tartar, me most excellent devil of wit. So, that's Act 2, Scene 5 of Breakneck Twelfth Night. Next week, we launch into Act 3 as Viola once again returns to Olivia's house. Please hit like, subscribe, or ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of the jokes. Once more, I'm Tim Mooney with the Timothy Mooney Repertory Theater, and I bring these breakneck shows to theaters around the United States. I would love to come and perform for you and your school or group. You can also find my work online at timmooneyRep.com with video versions at breakneckshakespeare.com. Finally, if you see the value getting students interested in Shakespeare by way of the naughty parts, you can support these many explainer videos and our performance tours at patreon.com/timmooneyRep. See you on the stage.